Hi everyone, Alan Psych here. I have a quick video for you today that I have entitled Sexual Assault Propensities. This is taken from the Archives of Sexual Behavior, July 2024. The article is Evidence that Pervasive Body Gaze Behavior in Heterosexual Men is a Social Marker for Implicit, Physiological, and Explicit Sexual Assault Propensities. The authors are Hollett, West, Craig, Marnes, and McHugh. Also took some information from the PsyPost review by Eric Dolan. Okay, this is for informational purposes only. And some of the information I've taken and I've put on my notes is word for word, others paraphrased, others just, my take. All right, so here we go. Sexual assault is problematic in many countries, including Australia and the US, with approximately 15 to 20% of women reporting having been assaulted at some point in their lives. Now, the researchers use self-report surveys, implicit association tests, and measured physiological indicators. Think physiological arousal here. Now, I'm not going to go into all the specific details, but it's available for you to read, if you just go to the article for more information. So what is pervasive body gaze behavior? So according to the article, it is deliberate and effortful attempts to gaze at the bodies of women. And just as a side note, I know, like when I go to the gym, I try to be real mindful of making sure I'm not staring at people, women, when they're working out. I don't want to be considered a dirty old man or anything like that. Now, some more information. Some preliminary evidence suggests that pervasive body gaze behavior may also accompany insidious attitudes which can facilitate sexual assault. Okay, so some important information here. Now, the authors presented 110 heterosexual male participants with images of fully and partially dressed women with and without injuries while measuring their skin conductance responses. We also captured implicit and explicit sexual assault measures in addition to self-reported pervasive body gaze behavior. Pervasive body gaze behavior was significantly correlated with rape myth acceptance attitudes, among other things. Okay, that's important. Now, findings suggest that body gaze towards women could be a behavioral marker for inclinations to victim blame, preferences for rough sexual conduct, and a physiological desensitization towards female victims. Real important information here. Sexually objectifying gaze has been measured in differing ways. For example, Gervais et al. In 2018 used several highly repetitive body gaze items. For example, stared, leered, gazed, to estimate the frequency by which body gaze occurs toward generic subjects, for example, men or women. Now, the question I have is whether or not stared, leered, or gazed can be quantified. For example, the amount of time an individual stared or the number of times within a certain time frame a person gazed. I'd be interested in studies that quantified the behaviors in this manner. As a side note, while working as a school psychologist, I often charted behaviors measuring frequency, duration, and intensity. And maybe I'd be using partial interval charting and tally behavior if it occurred within a certain time frame. So like one tally in, say, a 1 minute interval, even if two behaviors occurred. Or I could measure duration, if the behavior, say we're talking about staring, lasted for 30 seconds, for example. But that's all, a different video. So I would just be interested if the studies could actually quantify the information a little bit. One more interesting note that was mentioned. The single body gaze item used by Reamer et al., this is 2022, referred to a difficulty not to gaze at women's body parts, suggesting that sexually objectifying body gaze behavior may involve inhibitive difficulties. Okay, so some interesting stuff here. Some men may have that propensity to have a difficulty in inhibiting some of their behaviors. Makes sense if we're talking about if these behaviors are leading to some sort of sexual assault. Okay, and hopefully there'll be some follow-up research in this area, and that is it for now. Thanks.